Hello there. And it looks dark because it is dark. It's getting late. I don't like this time of year, but that's beside the point. But again, as I say a lot, you're not here to see what I look like. At least hope not, because I don't see why you would be looking here to see what I look like. But today I wanted to share my weight loss story. I haven't really mentioned this before. I've alluded to it, but I thought that for a couple of things, I thought it would be a good idea to mention it. I've alluded to it, but I thought that for a couple of things, I thought it would be a good idea to mention it. Because essentially what's happened is since in the last 9 years, I've lost over 70 pounds. And some people are going to say, oh, 70 pounds. And then some people are going to say, 9 years. So it's like, how did this all come together? And I thought maybe some of you might be interested in it. If nothing else, for perseverance. It started actually the Tuesday morning of Thanksgiving week in the year 2016. I woke up in pain. My ribs hurt like crazy, and I had no idea why. When nothing went wrong, nothing got better for the rest of the day. I went to the hospital. They took a look at me and they decided that my blood pressure was sky high. It was 175 over something. I don't remember. I stopped listening when they said 175. Um, I was heavy and they kept me in the hospital for a couple of days because they couldn't figure out, what had I done. And I had obviously had a concussion. I have to this day, I have absolutely no idea what I did. Obviously, I fell. Most likely fell in the bathroom someplace and hit my head on the toilet or the tub or something. Anyway, I still have no clue whatsoever of what happened. All I know is that I woke up in the morning and I hurt. My brother mentioned that he found me on the floor and helped me get back into bed, but he doesn't know what happened either. Um, but for a variety of reasons, A, the 175 over whatever for blood pressure, and the fact that they measured me and that was my highest weight I've ever had was 216 pounds. Now, I'm tall, but still, that was heavy for even for me. So I decided that I was going to start doing something, especially since the ribs hurt and there wasn't much anything else. But, I said, okay, this is not going to work. So I started doing something to start losing weight. Uh, it went around okay. I was losing a little bit, not much. I was losing a little bit. And then I got some blood work done in 2019, in which my triglycerides were high. Now, triglycerides are supposed to be like below 100. Mine were 216. 216. Yeah, you heard that right. So that got my attention. And then the doctor said something to the effect of, well, your cholesterol and your glucose and everything else is still okay, but everything is increasing ever so slightly. And she showed me the data. And yeah, everything was slowly going up. And she said those infamous to me words now, you're on your way to becoming a diabetic. And I says, it is not going to happen. Not at all. So basically, I went home and started to think about what I was going to do and how I was going to do that, and did some research as to what I could do to continue doing the things I'd already done. I'd lost some weight, but it's obviously still hadn't lost quite enough. And with my triglycerides at 216, I was obviously not eating everything that I should have eaten. And so I was doing some surgery, and I says, okay, not surgery, some review and inspections and things like that to see what would happen. So I made the decision, started setting up on a diet, and started doing things. And what I did is I documented. This is where the numbers came. Got a little booklet right here. Pulled it out. Show you actually. This is what it looks like. I've got. This goes back years. This started actually in January of 2000. Well, this book started. Particular book started in January of 2022, and I recorded the date and what my weight was and the time that I recorded it. Um, so that I could see that I was doing it more or less at the same time each day, because I'm aware of the fact that weight changes during the course of the day. And so slowly but surely over the course of time, it's come down. Like right now, I am just about 20 pounds lower weight than I was when I started this almost 4 years ago, this particular little book. So you do the math real quickly, you'll realize that it's taken me some time. None of this was rapid by any stretch of the imagination. It's been slow. So if you look at the 2016 date when I cracked the rib, oh yeah, by the way, I did have fractured ribs. They couldn't figure out what anything was. They said I fainted. Because that's the only thing that they could find, because everything else was basically healthy except they had cracked ribs, high blood pressure, overweight, and cracked ribs. But everything else was fine, so that we knew that I wasn't like didn't have a mini stroke or anything. So that I was looking at this and started on a way of getting things down. And what's interesting about this, and this is basically why I wanted to share it with you, is I've got data here, pages and pages and pages of data. But there have been plenty of moments, like almost every other week moments kind of thing, in which I get into the point of looking at the data, looking at the scale and saying, why am I not losing weight? I know this is going to be funny to you. It's going to sound strange. But at the moment of when I'm looking at things, I was saying, I'm not losing weight. I'm not getting anywhere. There were so many times, excuse me, that I would look at the weight that I recorded and said, I've just gained weight. I'm not getting anywhere. It's getting bad. I was looking at a small segment of that time frame, like the week I was in. I was not looking, very rarely did I go back and look at what had been. When I did do that, I was able to remind myself that look at how far you've come. And this is the interesting thing about this whole process that I find that most people have a hard time with, is we don't turn around, excuse me, we don't turn around and look at how far we've come. I had data to indicate that I had lost weight, a lot of weight, as a matter of fact, but I didn't look at it. I just looked at where I was and the next stage I wanted to get. So if I was like, say, something that ended in a 5 and I was looking to get it down to a 0, I was looking at the fact that I might be going up to 6 or 7, and it's like, oh, gee, I'm gaining weight. Ultimately, slowly, over time, obviously, it worked. Now, if you've done the math, in 9 years, I've lost roughly 70 pounds, which is on the average, let's say roughly 8 pounds a year, just to make everything round. This is not by chance anything that anybody really wants to say, because if you're going to go lose weight, the idea of losing 8 pounds a year isn't going to get anybody overwhelmingly happy. Not when you're looking forward. When I look back, I can tell that I was doing it on a relatively consistent basis. Over the course of the last several years, I would be losing somewhere between 6 to 9 pounds a year consistently. The data is there. I can look at it and I can calculate it and it's there, but I didn't use it that way. I just kept looking at where I was and what the scale said on that particular day. And then I'd get upset with myself or excited, depending on what it looked like, because I didn't think I was losing weight. Now, this is the irony of the whole thing, and the whole reason I'm basically telling you this, because it's obvious when you look at the data and know where I was and look at what the scale says, especially if you look at the clothes that I no longer have, because I started to say I can't wear them anymore. I can't put them on except they're really, really big, and so I've just given them away because they were just huge. And some clothes that I can remember being tight 10 years ago, I no longer own because they were too big. So I would have the evidence that was quite smack dab in front of my face, but my head said I hadn't lost weight. The book said I lost weight. My head said I didn't. So when I tell you that the brain tells you things like, you haven't lost weight, you're gaining weight, this is bad, what have you eaten? It doesn't necessarily mean you should trust it. In fact, I would say pretty much don't, because you look at the data. That's what's going to tell you what's going on. Turn around and look at what you've done. Keep records, because if you don't keep records, all you're going to go on is what your brain's telling you, which invariably is going to be wrong. Because if you're going to be anything like I was at this point, I'm listening to my brain. I'm still doing this, which is the ironic thing, because I got on the scale the last couple of days and said, oh, gee, I've gained weight. And that's what triggered this whole decision to do this today, is because I found myself saying, wait a minute, I've lost a lot of weight. Why am I still telling myself that I'm not losing weight? Part of my head still tells me I'm not losing weight. The data says otherwise. The data reminds me I've got paperwork got the discharge papers from when I was, cracked the ribs and everything else like that. Things have changed. I know I can put clothes on, and I know that they're not as tight as they once were. And yet my head still says, "You're not losing weight." When I get on the scale and I go up half a pound or something like that, I have been known to get really ticked off at myself because I get on the scale and go up 1 pound. And then I get with myself and say, "What's this big deal? 1 pound. You've got data to indicate that you've lost more than this. 1 pound is no big deal. A weight changes." So the moral of the story, if you will, whatever your goal is, recognize the fact that there's going to be ups and downs. But if you keep working at it, ultimately you'll get where you want to go if you keep working at it. Now, that's why I also plead data, because if you've got the data that you can turn around and look back at the data, look at how far you've come. It helps fight that battle with your head, which your head is saying it's not working. Your head lies to you. My head lies to me all the time. And I know this stuff. I know it. Even as I look at the scale and get upset with myself because, quote, I just gained a pound, part of my head knows that that's not true. Well, it might be true for that particular moment, but it's not like it's the end of the world because I just gained weight and it's the end of the world because it's never going to go back again, blah, 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 and I go downhill. Because then I can take a look at the data and say, this has happened. I've gained weight before. I've lost it. But the idea is that I keep going downhill. And that's what's the important part. Okay? So I'm hoping that this little story was useful. I'm hoping that I gave you an idea of why it helps. You don't need much to keep data. Like I said, this is just page after page after page after page of the same thing of data. And in fact, right here, you've got even a couple of pictures, if I can move this in here, of sad faces in which I'm saying, oh, well, in that particular case, that was because of a couple of other things. But I've got smiley faces or frowny faces in here because of something that I did. And I hit a point, a good point in my weight loss journey. And so I've made a smiley face. I've got it there. And I need that to keep looking at it, to keep going and keep staying where I am. And that's why I plead, and I suspect that you might want to try data too. So I hope this is helping. So let me know what you think. If you've got any questions, holler at me. You should be able to know how to find me. So just let me know, and let me know whether or not this was helpful to you or whether I just wasted a few minutes of your time. I hope I didn't. I hope if nothing else, telling you to keep data and look in the past to show you how far you've come, because that's important. It keeps you going. Kept me going. Okay. Have a good day. If you're in the cold part, stay warm. If you're in the warm part, hang on because it'll get cold. It's just the way it is at this time of year. So I want to say we'll see you later. Bye.